Welcome back, Richard. It's good to see you
Nice to see you.
on this fine day
Midsummer.
when we're going to talk about, it is midsummer, and we're going to talk about stress today.
Right.
Do you know anything about stress?
Well, let's see. Yeah, we need to learn how to manage it. And certainly there's a lot of stress around these days.
There
Um,
is.
it seems
Absolutely.
like, just when you think the news can't get any worse, it seems to find a way. And I don't know, sometimes we're advised just to not look at the news for a while, take a break
Right. Yeah.
from the news because it can be upsetting. It can create additional stress. But certainly there's a lot in the news today. There's a lot going on today that is creating stress.
Absolutely.
It's not new, but it seems to be worse.
I encourage people quite often to stop watching the news because it is so stressful. Between COVID, the issues going on globally with the war in the Ukraine and what Russia's doing.
Right.
We have issues related to inflation. If everybody's been following the situation with with our Olympic basketball player who is
Right.
in I guess in jail in Russia right
In
now.
a Russian prison, what could be worse, right?
So,
No, and
so there's lots of things happening.
right. And some of the stress that we're experiencing is unavoidable. I mean, there really is. I mean, COVID just happened. It's a disease, but it happened around the world. I guess the Poles were immune, but other than that, affected everybody in the world. There was really nothing we could do about it. Putin, a single individual, attacks another country and destroys it, so that he can negotiate a peace settlement. You mentioned inflation. Inflation happens periodically. I've been around long enough to see these economic trends, and it sort of rises and falls. But also, sometimes your personal health will fail.
Right.
People suddenly get some sort of medical condition that just sort of happens.
Right.
One of the things that we've been working on is working with the elderly, and the elderly tend to make jokes about it, but after a certain age, your body begins to rebel. It begins to, it just does. I mean, your joints begin to ache. You sleep differently. You eat differently. And so things just happen to your body over time. And then, of course, other people impinge on us, family members, friends, coworkers, other drivers.
Right.
And these are things that we really can't do anything about. And of course, the whole issue of mass shootings, which have been in the news these days. So
Right.
these are sort of unavoidable stressors in our lives.
Right.
It may be worse, there may be more of them, but they are just going to happen.
Right.
In addition to that, though, we have stress that's created by
Right.
others
Well,
on purpose.
right. And sometimes it's stress that we create ourselves.
Exactly.
We get into situations where just we get into discussions or arguments with people, that aren't really necessary.
Right.
And we create
Right.
disagreements. Oftentimes, of course, during political seasons, we see that a lot where, politicians tend to say things or do things that sort of pushed out towards the extremes, and that sort of gets everybody riled up a little bit. And so we
Right.
have these difficult conversations and challenging interactions with others. And it's not healthy. And all it does is
Right.
really increase stress.
That's right. Because this is an election season, so politicians are going to talk about the opposition as though they're the devil or as though they're the enemy. We're really not enemies, but during an election season, that's bound to happen. I also think about help desks that don't provide much help.
Right.
You call to get help and you don't get it. And then reading the fine print, that's another thing that we're running into today is that There are, companies have these fine print things that if you don't read them carefully, you could get into trouble. Insurance hassles that we're all having. So whether it's intentional or unintentional, stress just seems to be all around us. And as you say, sometimes we create our own stress. I have partners, husbands and wives, who they'll come in and complain about the other partner because they're watching a particular news program or they're watching particular TV shows that really make them angry.
Mm-hmm.
And the spouse are saying, I wish she would stop watching that, or I wish he would stop watching that, because all he does is get angry and worked up, and then it's affecting our relationship. And
Well,
so,
you have news programs, but then, we also have couples and families who are really becoming torn, and sometimes torn apart because
right.
of other things that we typically think of as conveniences, like cell phones and the internet and things like that, where people
Right.
are, spending all their time on their phones or, plugged in but disconnected from the people around them. And so,
Right.
it's really difficult.
That's right. And now, and you sort of introduce the other part of stress that we often don't think about. And stress is sort of the price we pay for all these conveniences.
Right.
We have cell phones, but cell phones can be a nuisance. They can stop working. Then you have to go get another one. It costs a lot. They cost a lot of money these days.
Well, Richard, we've been, the internet is a fantastic thing, but then as soon as you start to rely on it, you sit down and try to record a podcast, and all of a sudden you're having internet problems, and we've
Like
been dealing
today.
with that all morning.
Right. That's right. And then all these things, and appliances, appliances are getting smarter and smarter, but they tend to break down because there are more moving parts. Somebody told, all these smart things in our cars,
Yeah.
those are all in your windshield. So now if you have to replace your windshield, you're also replacing all the electronics, and it can cost thousands of dollars
Yeah.
to replace that sheet of glass that used to be a few $100s. Okay?
Right.
So with medicines, we say that side effects are the price we pay for therapy. Well, stress is the price we pay for all these modern marvels, all these conveniences.
Right.
Email is wonderful. Email makes communication so easy. I often think, what if Thomas Jefferson had email? What he could have accomplished. But then I think, well, the first thing he would have to do is he'd have to go through his 50 emails that morning before he does anything else.
Right.
So there are side effects to all these conveniences, whether they're appliances or electronics.
Right. So one of the things that we've often find ourselves doing, whether it's in session with individuals or we're working with families or couples, is we try to find strategies, things to help people know what to do to help try to manage their stress.
Right. That's right.
And it's oftentimes our recommendations aren't things that they want to hear.
And they're not easy to do. We advise, it's like when
they're easy to do, but we don't necessarily want to do them.
That's right. The first one, how do you manage this? So things are getting worse. We're all stressed. So how do you manage better? Well, one thing is you can simplify. People talk about getting off the grid, which is extraordinarily difficult and is a full-time job. But another way is just to simplify, just stop buying stuff, okay?
Right.
Because all that, what do they call that? The going primitive, there's a word for it.
Minimalist.
Minimalist, right, becoming a minimalist. Simplify your life, because all that stuff that you get comes with side effects. The more stuff you have, the more side effects you're going to have. So maybe one possibility to manage your stress is just to simplify. You don't have to go, my kids used to call it going Amish. We're going to go Amish, which means we're going to do away with all the conveniences. That's not necessary, but you may want to consider simplifying your life. The other one is to manage your expectations.
Right.
I mentioned that to my sister the other day, and she was kind of offended. And she said, well, why should I have to? Why I should expect people to be, professional. I should expect help desks to help. And I should expect the insurance company to pay the bill that they agreed to pay. But that's not how the world works anymore. Right. And you have to manage your expectations. If you don't have the expectation, then you're never disappointed.
Right.
Okay? And then
Right.
the last thing is to unplug.
Right. And
Just
that's what I was thinking about is it's not difficult. I mean, it's really easy to turn your phone off.
it, it,
It's but for some reason it's super difficult to keep it off.
right.
You can
No,
turn it off
it
to
really is. People
we'll turn it
people
off
get
to
really
reset it,
nervous. No,
but we won't keep it off. We turn it off and then turn it right back on because we start jonesing for the next bit of information, the next post that's coming out. So
right. No, I could go on and on about cell phones and when you're in the company of others and people
right.
whip out their cell phones and get real involved and engaged. But well, that's just topic for another day.
Right.
So there are ways to manage your stress, and that brings us to today. When we talk about unplugging, there's a component of unplugging that we want to talk about today in this podcast, and that is the advice from many experts that you take one day a month
Right.
to take it off, but you have to be careful about how you take it off. You have to. It's sort of a skill you have to acquire, okay? Because the irony of stress is that when you're stressed, you feel pressure to do more.
Right.
The stress creates an internal pressure that I really need to do more. I need to work on a Saturday. I need to work this weekend. I have to catch up on everything.
Right.
But the irony of stress, of that kind of stress, is that's when you need to unplug the most. That and you just have to come to terms with that when you get that feeling that I got to do more, I got to do faster, I have to get up early, I have to work extra days, that's when we recommend that you seriously consider taking a day off to reset and recharge.
Yeah, I was working with a patient a couple of weeks ago, and I was offering that recommendation. Now I told her, I think you need to give yourself permission to take a day. And
Right.
and there was a long pause, and she said, "Wait, what do you mean?" And I wasn't even telling her to unplug. I was just telling her, just don't hold any expectations for yourself for that day. For one day,
Right.
when you wake up in the morning, don't lay there and think of all these things you have to do. Instead,
Right.
when you wake up in the morning, say, I don't have to do anything today. I don't have to go to work because the way that because of her job, she didn't have to go in that day. You don't have to you don't have to clean the house from top to bottom. You don't have to run errands or anything like that. Just have a day where you don't have to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of convincing for her to realize that that's okay.
She had a hard time giving herself permission.
Right. Right.
Her supervisors, I mean, her contract allows her to
Yeah.
take days off. Most of us do.
Yeah.
We do have a choice. There's a reason. I didn't realize this, but 47 million people quit their jobs last year.
Right.
They talk about employment and jobs are available. I didn't realize the number was that high. That's 50 million people. It's a lot of people.
And that wasn't
Um,
even because of just because of the pandemic.
no, it's not just because of the pandemic. These are people who have sort of reached their limits. Now, the pandemic has affected some more than others. I
Mm-hmm.
think teachers probably are a good example. But teachers are feeling pressure not just from the pandemic.
Right.
Teachers are feeling political pressure, social pressure, religious pressure. There's a lot of pressure on teachers today,
Right.
and they know they're not being supported on the one hand, but they're being criticized by many on the other hand. By a lot of different sources of criticism on teachers today, and yet they're being asked to do more and more with less. Nurses are in the same predicament. We don't have enough nurses, and so they're being asked to do more, but they're not. There's pressure coming from their supervisors to do more and more and more. Nurses are well paid, but it's an enormously stressful job that they're doing.
Right.
And then, of course, you have all of the first responders, police, fire, paramedics. They're all being stretched. In our county, there's the firefighters and paramedics are now have mandatory overtime. It used to be voluntary. Now it's mandatory because they just don't have enough people
Right.
to fill all the positions. So there, it's not just the pandemic that has caused this.
Right.
There is pressure in all of these jobs. We often say, if you're working today, you're working more hours and you're under more stress than you've ever been. I mean, and more is expected of you.
Yeah. So when we talk about taking a day off, let's think for a minute about what that means.
Right.
We're not just talking about like sleeping in and ignoring your email, because that could cause other problems, right?
That's right. That's just gonna, if you lie in bed, all you're gonna do is feel guilty. You're gonna feel worse about things.
Right.
Okay. That's not what we're talking about. Okay.
Right. And we're not talking about like spending hundreds of dollars on a day spa either.
That make it worse. Now you have another charge on your credit card.
Right, right. So, but we're going to talk about other ways to sort of de-stress, reset yourself, recharge your batteries, your emotional batteries as well as your physical batteries, and that aren't really going to add a whole bunch of other stress.
That's right. I think those are two really important points. That it's not just lying in bed doing nothing. That's the first thing. We're not asking you to do nothing, and we'll get into that in a minute. And also, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. Remember, inflation is affecting day spas too. So, if that is the way that if a massage is the way that you relax, then certainly get a massage. But you don't need to go into debt in order to do what we're talking about. What we are talking about when we talk about de-stress and recharge, we're talking about things you do to your body, basically. Okay. And most of what we're going to be talking about from these experts is things that you do for your body when you take this day off.
Right. Yeah. These are recommendations from an article we found, and I think they're really good. Many of them are things that we talked about before on previous podcasts, but they're certainly good reminders that that they help relieve stress and help us manage some of these pressures. And the first is moving your body, getting out and moving. I was just talking with a friend a couple of days ago about we were talking about depression. We have a mutual friend who's depressed, and we were kind of talking about how when we feel really depressed or we feel down, that mood, that emotion encourages us to be more lethargic. It encourages us to sit and be sedentary. We feel a lack of motivation. We don't feel much of a drive to do much, all of which is like exactly the opposite of what we need to be doing.
Right.
Instead of sitting down and just sort of vegging out, which is, again, let's be honest, it's okay to do that sometime.
Sure.
But it's not going to, that in and of itself isn't going to resolve the problem. Getting up and moving, when your sadness or depression is telling you want to stay in bed or you want to stay on the couch, do the opposite of what the depression is telling you. It's maybe intuitive, but just get up and move, go for a walk, do something that gets your body moving.
That's right. Our bodies were meant to move, and they were meant to move in all 360, all kinds of directions. Our joints, for example, your knee joint, those things were expected. They're built to move in 360 degrees. Any movement is good, but repetitive movement, we all know about repetitive movement. If you keep doing the same movement over and over again, that's when you get injuries. Okay. So our bodies were meant to move. Like it or not, we were meant to move. But even in primitive cultures, we tend to think of hunter-gatherer cultures. Those people only move for about 6 hours a day. They weren't out hunting 12 and 15 hours a day the way we are. They they went out and gathered and hunted for about 6 hours, but the rest of the time was spent in relaxation and sitting around talking to each other. So, but our problem is we stay on task, we stay on the job for many, many hours. Many of us work way beyond 8 hours, okay? But you have to get up and move. We learned during the pandemic that we became more sedentary. Gyms were closed. Public parks were closed. And so we became sedentary. and we don't know whether it's a causal relationship, but we know that anxiety and depression both increased with decreased physical activity. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But when you move, you have to do something that you find enjoyable.
Right.
You're not, if you hate to run, then don't run.
Right.
You don't have to run. If you hate to lift weights, if you hate to get in a swimming pool, if you absolutely abhor going then don't put swimming on your list of things to do. Do what you find uh, joyful, it
Right.
is one word, what you find brings you relaxation, what makes you feel better.
Right.
It could be, it doesn't matter what it is. Do what you want to do. And sometimes it may be, I've often thought that maybe I should do Tai Chi.
Mm.
Okay. It seems like a very effective way of relieving stress and keeping your joints moving.
Mhm.
Maybe on my next day off, I may want to introduce myself to Tai Chi, do something new,
Yeah.
okay, that you've been wanting to do.
Right.
So don't go out and punish yourself. Do something that makes you move your body in ways that make you feel better.
Absolutely. Now, another way to relieve stress, and again, something that we've talked about many times before,
Right.
is to eat healthy, have a nutritious meal, and make sure that you're hydrating. You know, dehydration has been a massive issue,
Right.
like especially in areas like here in Central Florida where we are, where it's I think it teeters around 1 million degrees every day. Um,
Give or take
but
two,
it, huh?
give or take 2 degrees.
Yeah,
Right.
it is so hot and humid, and it just, if you're not careful, you can become dehydrated very quickly, and that of course is going to wear and tear on your body and create a lot of stress,
Right.
biological distress. It not necessarily psychological stress, but certainly physical stress, and your body responds to all of it the same, anyways. So
Correct.
eating healthy foods takes care of your body, helps relieve some of that stress, and hydrate. We know our bodies don't do well when we're not drinking enough water.
Right. Mhm. Yep. We don't, like exercise, you may want to do something new. We don't want you to eat healthy food on this one day a month. We
Right.
want you to eat healthy all the time. But maybe this one day a month is a time for you to add a healthy meal to your regular
Right.
food plan. Okay. Maybe it's time to start eating quinoa. Maybe it's time to start eating gluten free, or maybe it's time to eat more healthy protein. This is a good day to introduce that into your diet. Certainly, there's lots that you shouldn't eat.
Right.
Okay, I'm thinking particularly about processed food, high sugar foods, because that creates inflammation, and that can send you in the opposite direction, make you feel worse. Okay,
Right.
so there are things you shouldn't eat, but maybe this is the time to add a healthy meal to your monthly food plan.
Right.
And as you say, hydrate. People who have lived in Florida for a long time, I've been here about 20 years, but people who've been here all of their lives, even they say it feels like it's hotter
Mhm.
recently. Okay, and if it's hotter, that means your risk for dehydration increases.
Right.
So you got to keep up with your water intake, not
Yeah,
your soda intake, your water intake.
absolutely. Now, the third strategy, again, something we've talked about often, is making sure that you get enough rest. And that, I think you and I will both be honest and say that this is something that we struggle with, because
You and I struggle with.
you, you and I, right? Because we
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 don't sleep enough.
we get up very early, and work, but sleep is so important. Sleep has been associated with global healthy functioning, from your, not just your body, but the way that your brain functions and everything else. And so, we need to make sure that we're getting adequate sleep, like you said, every day. But this rest day or this day off that you're taking could be a day to help kind of catch up on some of that rest and recuperation for your body, from the stress that it's been having over the rest of the previous portions of the month.
That's right. I found two really helpful tips that they provide in this article. One is, um, you can use the day to catch up on lost sleep. I mean, you and I don't sleep enough, but we could use this day. But it helps if you go to bed early the night before your day off, okay?
Right.
Because if you go to bed early, you want to get up early that day and sort of start to reset your clock and go to bed early that night too. So there's two times, the day before, the night before your day off, and the night of your day off, is to go to bed early so that you can get up early the next morning and get everything done that you want to do. One
Right.
of the things you don't want to do is if you take a day off. So let's say you decide that you're going to take a Monday off. Well, you want to go to bed early that Monday night, because when you get up Tuesday morning, you want to get up in a leisurely way and not be under a lot of pressure. You don't want to fall out of bed and have to rush around and grab some food, jump in the car and drive too fast to get to work. That
Right.
just is going to increase your stress. So
Right.
go to bed early so you get up early to give yourself enough time to re-enter the world gradually.
Well, and some of that is so counter to what most people do, because what do
Right.
most people do when they're taking a day off? The night before, they stay up late.
Right.
If you're
Right.
going to take Monday, if Monday's a holiday or Monday's a day off, most
Mhm.
people stay up late on that Sunday night, and
Yeah.
they sleep late on Monday, which only makes Tuesday even worse.
That's right. It's not going to help if if you feel terrible because you drank too much or you ate the wrong foods or you went to bed too late on Sunday night, and then you don't feel physically healthy on Monday. You feel tired and dragged out, and you're not going to use that day um, in a helpful way. So go to bed early so that the next morning is a gradual entry into that day, but also go to bed early on Monday night so that you relax and you're calm when you get up on Tuesday morning and you have to face the world again.
Absolutely.
Um, Bernie, I meant to ask you, you have used one of those mindfulness apps, haven't you? Did you use Calm or something?
I've used Calm before. Yeah. So yeah, there's a number of them that are really good. Calm, Headspace is a good one. Some of them
Mhm.
have, require monthly subscriptions. Others are free, but yeah, there are so many mindfulness apps out there that just help
And
you.
they're good, right? I mean, they're effective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if
I
you're
always
having,
encourage people to try lots of different ones, because for whatever reason, even though the guided voices, the voice that guides you through the meditation it often sounds the same across every app. It's so weird. For some reason, some apps work better for some people, and other apps they just are more connected to. So yeah,
so
try
try
different
different
ones.
ones.
Yeah.
But if you're having trouble sleeping, if you're having trouble relaxing, turn off the cell phones, turn off the news programs, the 24-hour news programs, and try that mindfulness apps. I have never done one, but people who use them find them to be very useful,
Yeah,
to be very
absolutely.
helpful.
Absolutely. Now
And
this
the
article,
last,
yeah, go ahead. The article offers one other recommendation. I'm gonna let you take this one.
it says, accomplish something. When you decide to take a day off, don't don't say, well, I'm not going to do anything today. I'm going to do absolutely nothing.
Right.
That's probably not going to help. All
Right.
right.
Not at all.
So and this is what we meant earlier when we said it takes a little planning, and this is a skill that you're going to develop and you'll get better at it. But you have to determine what you're going to do that day. Okay. So it may be that you're going to use this day to learn Tai Chi or to learn a new recipe or to um, clean a closet out or
Mhm.
begin to paint that room that you've been dying to paint or hang the shades that you've been, or whatever it is. Decide what it is you're going to accomplish that morning, that next day. Okay.
Right.
Don't just get up and say, I'm not going to do anything today.
Right.
Too little stress. If you have no stress, you're going to become complacent. Okay.
Right.
Um, and so you have to have some motivation, some reason to do something. So
Mhm.
the first thing in taking a day off every month is to have something specific. You know, if you've been wanting to learn how to make sourdough bread, that would be a good, but get your starter. Okay, go get your starter early and say, okay, I've got all my ingredients. Today is the day that I'm finally going to learn how to make sourdough bread.
You know, Richard, sometimes I just
You're
wonder,
laughing.
or sometimes I just wonder what your life is like. You come up with examples sometimes, and you know, I've never met anybody who like sat around thinking, I really want to learn how to make sourdough bread.
You don't want to do that? That's never occurred to you.
You know, it hasn't, and maybe that's my a limitation that I have. But it's a
I
great,
feel bad that
it's a
I
great,
feel sort of sad that I feel kind of sad that you've never thought about that before.
you know what? It's going to go on my list. But the idea,
No,
you want to do something productive, you want to do some relaxing things, but
right.
at least something productive. So, you know, the article recommends like a 1-to-4 ratio. You do 1 productive things and like 4 relaxing things. Just because, you know, stress isn't an evil thing. Stress isn't a bad thing. We need stress. If we don't have stress, we don't do anything. Like you said, we become complacent. We just kind of lounge around, and that's never a good thing for us. Again, our physical health or our mental health or anything. So you want to have something to be driven for. You want to have something that you're trying to accomplish. So, you know, on your day off, you know, have one thing that you want to accomplish, whether it's learning how to make sourdough bread or learning Tai Chi.
I'm surprised.
And then taking some relaxing time.
I'm shocked to hear that, Bernie, that it never occurred to you.
It didn't.
Well, now wait a minute. Fairness doctrine. You don't eat gluten.
That's true.
Okay, so of course bread wouldn't be on your list.
You know what? That's probably the reason why, right
I
there.
feel better. Now I feel a little bit better because you're right. You're you don't have you're gluten sensitive, right?
Right. Not celiac, but
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel a little redemption here that I'm okay now. But when you have this day, if you are going to do a cooking project, make sure you get all your ingredients the day before, because you know how frustrating it can be. You start to think about doing a project and I was like, oh, I don't have any yeast. So then you got to go to the store. Then you got to battle that. So get everything together so that you're ready to have this very productive day. But don't be too ambitious. As you said, it's about a 1-to-4 ratio. When you're, do something that you can do in a leisurely way, but leave yourself time to relax. Don't decide that you're going to paint a room that day. That's taking on more than you should. But plan something that really will make you feel better. Something you've been wanting to do, something new, and that's a good accomplishment for that day. That will not only relieve your stress, it'll make you feel better generally, and it gives you another way. It gives you another skill to add to your daily routine.
Absolutely. So, you know, as we kind of are going through things and, you know, experiencing all the stress that life has to offer us these days, you know, just, you know, try to take that one day a month. You know, you don't have to take the day off work. It could be a Saturday or Sunday, or one of your typical days off from work. But, you know, use that day to just, you know, unplug if you can. But move your body, eat healthy, you know, make sure you're sleeping, and balance that, you know, do something productive, but something productive for you. We're not talking about, you know what, I'm going to get this last report done for work. That's going to be my one productive thing to do. That's not going to accomplish what we're trying to do here.
That's going to be your temptation, though. Right. Your temptation is going to be, I'm going to take a day off to catch up on all my work. That's not taking a day off. That's a work day.
Right.
Okay? So we're talking about a completely different kind of day, not a catch-up day. This is a day where you do something completely different. And this is really a recharge and a restore.
Absolutely. Well, all right. I think that's it for today. We're not going to be here next week. We're not going to record for next week. Dr. Marshall's going to be out of town. And there's lots of other things happening around here. So we're going to take the next week off, but we'll be back the week after. with another podcast.
We will.
All right.
We will indeed.
So
It's good seeing you again,
you
even
as
if
well.
it's some distance here. But yeah, almost halfway through. We will be at the midpoint of July
Yeah.
next week. So they're flying by. I think Miss Cassie is probably keeping a countdown for the holidays, right? She usually starts that in July.
I think so.
So she'll have how many days left? How many shopping days left?
That's right. She always keeps count. So all right. That's it for today. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.